Step out for me, sir.
I do not consent to a search. This is unlawful.
All right, I need you to get out of the car, sir.
I cannot. I do not have a fucking wheelchair. You idiot. My legs do not work.
A pile of sources, articles, research videos, our own notes, and boil it all down. We want to give you those essential, high-impact nuggets of insight. The stuff you need to be genuinely well-informed and pretty fast, too.
Okay, well then we're going to search the car with you sitting in it.
That's illegal, sir.
So no, it's not, sir. Odor of marijuana is a probable cause for a search.
You can't search a vehicle with somebody in it.
Okay, then you're going to have to get the out of the car, dude. Then get out of the car. I'm asking you to get out of the car, sir.
He cannot. He doesn't have a wheelchair, sir. He cannot. Please, sir, he doesn't. He cannot walk. He cannot walk. Please.
Okay, do not crawl out into...
You did this. Y'all told me to get out of the vehicle. I told y'all I did not have my wheelchair. I have no use of my legs.
Well, if you're going to crawl yourself over that way, sir.
It just spirals into this ordeal that's so bewildering, so deeply unsettling. It pushes friendship, disability, constitutional rights, pushes them right to the absolute breaking point. We're taking you to DeKalb, Texas. We're going to unravel a real-life story that does exactly that. Now, our sources for this deep dive, they're really powerful. We've got eyewitness accounts captured on video giving you this visceral, like, moment-by-moment look at what went down.
Right, and that video evidence is crucial. It lets you see the interactions directly.
Absolutely. And alongside that, we have expert legal analysis, a civil rights lawyer who has meticulously unpacked the legal side of things, the nuances.
Yeah, looking at the relevant case law, the constitutional questions involved.
Together, these sources, well, they paint a vivid picture. And frankly, it's a disturbing picture, a traffic stop that just unravels fast. It reveals layers of deep-seated distrust, some really questionable police tactics, and a series of surprising legal plot twists. I guarantee these twists will challenge how you think about law enforcement protocols. It's pretty stunning stuff.
It really makes you question the application of law in these specific challenging circumstances.
So our mission today is clear. We're going to unpack every critical moment of this encounter. We'll introduce you to the unforgettable people at the heart of it. And we want to help you understand the significant implications. Make sure you walk away truly well-informed about this extraordinary incident and, what it means for citizen rights. Okay, let's start by meeting the central characters. Their lives really intertwine in this pivotal moment. First up, Jacob Jackson. Jacob is the driver of the Cadillac. He's paraplegic.
A man described as having incredible resilience.
Totally. He uses specialized hand controls to drive, navigate life with remarkable independence. But Jacob's life also requires meticulous planning, a deep understanding of his body. We're going to learn about his very specific medical needs, particularly his strict schedule for catheterization. It's non-negotiable.
Absolutely critical due to a condition called autonomic dysreflexia, which is serious, potentially life-threatening.
Exactly. And crucially, on this specific day, Jacob did not have his wheelchair with him. And this detail, it seems small, right? The absence of his main mobility aid. But it becomes absolutely central, like a critical fulcrum around which this whole drama tragically pivots.
It's striking, isn't it? How his daily reality, these precise medical needs, the planning his life demands, it just gets so profoundly overlooked, even actively disregarded during this interaction. It immediately sets a stage where, personal vulnerability stemming from a medical condition is just exposed to institutional indifference.
Yeah.
The lack of a simple item like his wheelchair, which normally might be an inconvenience. Here, it completely changes the dynamic. It escalates a routine stop into a crisis. It really underlines how easily a system can fail when it doesn't account for the diverse realities of the people it's supposed to serve.
Then we have Dallas Bruce, Jacob's best friend. Dallas is 100% blind. His world is experienced through sound, touch, and, this unwavering bond of friendship he shares with Jacob.
They're more than just friends, the sources emphasize. They're a team.
A truly remarkable team, yeah. They've channeled their experiences into making these popular TikTok videos. They don't just entertain, they raise awareness about disabilities, sharing their dynamic with a global audience.
And they even take others with disabilities out hunting and fishing. It's quite something.
It really is. Using their shared purpose, their positive spirit to uplift and inspire, their bond, their reliance on each other, their commitment to advocacy. These aren't just side details. They're absolutely integral to understanding their perspective, their reactions, and their profound resilience through all of this.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, their shared purpose, this very public mission to raise awareness, you'd think ideally it would foster understanding, right? Respect.
You would hope so.
Instead, we see it collide, just head on. with this profound lack of empathy, a disregard for basic human dignity. It really highlights a deep societal disconnect, doesn't it? This chasm between the ideal of inclusive interaction and the often harsh reality that surfaces in these high-stress, authority-driven situations. Their story, in many ways, it becomes like a microcosm of a much larger struggle for recognition and respect for people with disabilities.
And then the other key player in this encounter, the DeKalb Police Department. Our source describes their reputation in, well, no uncertain terms. It's terrible.
Not a good starting point.
No. And that terrible reputation, it isn't just hearsay. It seems rooted in history, particularly a past traumatic incident involving Dallas Bruce himself, which, as you'll hear soon, provides crucial, absolutely heartbreaking context for the events that unfold.
That history adds another layer of complexity and tension right from the start.
Definitely. So the scene is set. Side of a busy highway, DeKalb, Texas. The vehicle's a Cadillac. Inside, Jacob and Dallas, also an unidentified woman, and an adorable dog. Yeah, this detail, the dog, it seems so innocuous, almost charming at first. But as you'll discover, it quickly becomes a central element in the officer's first calculated maneuver, a tactic that reveals the true underlying intentions behind this seemingly routine traffic stop. Main one, the fishing expedition. When a routine stop takes a suspicious turn. Okay, let's unpack this first part. Our deep dive starts with what looks, on the surface, like a very routine traffic stop. The stated reason for pulling over Jacob's Cadillac. A broken license plate light.
Pretty minor.
Extremely minor, right. The kind of thing you might expect a warning for. Maybe a quick fix-it ticket. Then you're on your way. But our source, the civil rights lawyer looking at this, immediately calls it a fishing expedition, right from the outset.
Suggesting the officer's real intentions were, well, not about the light.
Exactly. It implies they weren't just interested in road safety, they were looking for something more, something else entirely.
And this raises that critical question, doesn't it? If the infraction is so minor, why the big response? Multiple officers, immediate shift to more investigative tactics. It's a textbook example of what's often called a pretextual stop.
Pretextual stop. Explain that a bit more.
Sure. It's when officers use a minor traffic violation, like the broken light, as a legal excuse to pull someone over. Not because they're concerned about the light itself, but because they have a hunch, maybe a suspicion about something else, like drugs. But they don't have enough evidence, no probable cause, for a direct stop or search based on that hunch.
Okay, so the minor thing is the in.
Precisely. They use the minor infraction as a pretext to get closer to the car, to the occupants, hoping to find something else.
Got it. And this brings us straight to that first major move.
Yeah.
This calculated deception by one of the officers to try and, fabricate that probable cause they lacked. So while officer number 1 is talking to Jacob, the driver, officer number 2 circles around, goes to the rear passenger side.
Where the woman and the dog are.
Exactly. And what this officer 2 does next, it's really something. A masterclass in deceptive tactics. He starts tapping on the window, acting all friendly, like he's absolutely fascinated by this adorable dog.
Building rapport, seemingly.
Totally. He engages in what looks like incredibly harmless small talk, asking about rescuing dogs, talking about ear clipping, grooming habits.
Right.
Just chit-chat. He's smiling. He's personable. Looks like a friendly, dog-loving cop just making conversation. But it's not.
Right. This apparent friendliness is quickly identified by our source as a roost. That's a term used in some law enforcement circles.
A roost.
Yeah, it's a specific kind of deceptive tactic, often used as part of what they call an interdiction mission.
Interdiction, like stopping illegal activity.
Exactly. Broad police operations, often using traffic stops as a primary tool. The officer isn't genuinely interested in the dog. His goal is to get physically close to the car under this false pretense, to gain access, maybe see or smell something inside that could then be used to, quote, fabricate probable cause to search this car. It's a calculated move. Part of this mission based purely on a hunch, not actual evidence of a serious crime. The key takeaway here is that even these seemingly friendly police interactions can be a strategy, a way to try and bypass constitutional protections, turning a routine stop into that fishing expedition right from the get-go.
So this friendly chat about rescue dogs and floppy ears, it's not friendly, it's a calculated ruse. A lie, basically, designed to create a reason for a search. The officer tries to get consent for a search through this friendly act. But when that doesn't work,
He pivots.
he pivots fast. Suddenly, and quite abruptly, he claims he smells marijuana coming from inside the vehicle. A complete shift from dog talk to a direct, very serious accusation.
And this is where the legal context becomes absolutely critical, especially in Texas, which is under the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Okay, the Fifth Circuit, why is that so important here?
Well, the Fifth Circuit's rulings are binding law for federal courts and, by extension, local law enforcement in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Understanding their specific interpretation of the law is crucial to understanding why these officers felt they could act this way.
Gotcha.
In this jurisdiction, the Fifth Circuit has given police officers, well, really broad latitude is the term often used. Broad latitude to pull people out of their cars and search vehicles based solely on the alleged smell of marijuana. The precedent is long-standing. If an officer claims they smell marijuana, that claim by itself is considered enough to establish probable cause to search the entire vehicle, everything inside it, bags, containers, everything.
Wait, just the claim of smelling it, even if they don't find anything, that seems huge. So if an officer says they smell it, searches, finds nothing, the search is still legal, how does that protect against, unreasonable searches? That's where it gets really unsettling, doesn't it? Shocking, even.
That is precisely the critical point. And yes, it's the truly unsettling truth under the Fifth Circuit's interpretation. Even if officers search based on this alleged smell and find zero marijuana, absolutely nothing, the search itself is still considered lawful after the fact.
Wow.
It effectively creates this significant loophole. It allows officers to establish probable cause without any concrete verifiable evidence. Probable cause is supposed to mean police have actual facts, enough to reasonably believe a crime occurred or evidence exists.
Right.
But here, the claim itself becomes the fact, legally speaking. And the system, unfortunately, has very few immediate checks if an officer's smell turns out to be wrong, or even, as the source alleges here, fabricated.
And the source is explicit about that.
Yes, the source explicitly states the belief that the officer is lying about the smell of marijuana, specifically to gain access to the vehicle, leveraging this exact legal loophole to bypass the need for real evidence.
What an absolutely unsettling revelation. This power to just claim a smell, conduct a search, even if it proves baseless, grants incredible authority with little immediate accountability.
It does. And the systemic insight here is how these legal interpretations, even if intended to help law enforcement, can inadvertently create pathways for a potential deception, where a simple subjective claim, hard to disprove in the moment, can override fundamental constitutional protections.
Distrust, disregard, and the demands to exit.
So the officers now believe they have this probable cause based on the alleged smell, which our source insists is a lie. And they move to the next stage, ordering the occupants out of the car. But before they can even fully issue those commands, something profound happens. Dallas Bruce, the blind passenger, he speaks up. And he reveals this deeply disturbing, very personal reason for his profound mistrust of the DeKalb Police Department, a history that casts this long, dark shadow over everything happening right now.
And this backstory, it's not just a side note. It's absolutely fundamental to understanding Dallas's and Jacob's reactions from this point forward. It provides that crucial context for their deep-seated wariness, their reluctance to cooperate beyond what's legally required. It adds immense emotional weight to the situation. It transforms what might look like simple noncompliance to an outsider into this highly charged, deeply personal confrontation, rooted in real past trauma.
Yeah.
When someone's experienced that kind of profound violation of trust and duty from the police before, it just erodes their belief in law enforcement, makes their skepticism entirely rational.
Dallas recounts this horrifying incident from 2017. He was shot in the face with a shotgun.
Unbelievable.
And the very same DeKalb Police Department, the officer standing right there, allegedly waited like 3 hours before allowing him any medical treatment after he was shot.
3 hours after a shotgun wound to the face.
That's what he says. And then to make it even worse, they apparently refused to investigate it as a crime. Just think about that. Critically injured, denied immediate medical aid by the people sworn to protect you, and then having your trauma, your victimization, just dismissed. It's an unbelievable betrayal.
It's hard to even fathom the impact of something like that.
So for them, this isn't just some random traffic stop. They have this intensely personal, deeply traumatic history with this specific police department. This past isn't just a memory for Dallas. It's clearly a living trauma. How does that kind of deep-seated distrust, especially against the very authority meant to protect you, how does that change the dynamic of an interaction like this from the citizen's view? And, how should officers be trained to handle that, to de-escalate when faced with that kind of history?
That's an exceptionally important question. For Dallas, that trauma isn't something he can just switch off. It directly informs his stress response, his perception of the officers, his assessment of the danger he's in right now. From his perspective, this traffic stop isn't just an inconvenience, it's potentially re-traumatizing. It makes genuine cooperation incredibly difficult, maybe even feel impossible or unsafe.
Right.
Now, from the law enforcement side, ideally, well-trained officers should have de-escalation techniques. They should prioritize recognizing and responding to visible distress or, stated trauma like Dallas shared. That means active listening, trying to communicate empathetically, explaining why they're doing things clearly.
But we don't see that here.
No. In this instance, according to the source material in the video, we see a complete breakdown of those principles. It suggests either a serious lack of training or, maybe more troubling, a deliberate disregard for the human element of policing. This failure to acknowledge or address that past trauma just escalates the situation further. It pretty much solidifies the citizens' distrust.
With Dallas's history now hanging heavy in the air, intensifying the tension, the officers just pressed on. Officer Will Rodas turns his attention to Dallas, orders him, the 100% blind man, out of the car. A command that, given that history, must have hit Dallas with just profound fear and distrust.
He complies, though, right, but under protest.
He does. Making his distress clear, he's then patted down. And then, just with shocking disregard for his safety, he's made to lean against the patrol car, on the side of what's described as a busy highway.
A blind man on the shoulder of a busy highway. That's incredibly dangerous.
It's terrifying. The vulnerability, the danger, it's not just inconvenient, it's a safety hazard forced on him. Deeply disorienting, potentially fatal. Next, Officer Rose turns to Jacob, the paraplegic driver, orders him out of the vehicle too. Jacob, with incredible patience considering, immediately explains his situation. He says, "My legs do not work." And then the critical detail stated with his tone of desperate urgency, "I do not have a wheelchair."
Right. The missing wheelchair.
Yeah. Jacob clarifies why. He says there was no room in the car with Dallas's bags and other stuff. He thought it was just a quick errand, a few minutes. Not this roadside ordeal where he'd actually need his chair.
And the officer's reaction to this clear explanation.
Disregard. Just complete disregard for his physical inability. Despite his condition, despite him saying clearly he doesn't have his chair, they insist he get out.
It's a profound display of lack of understanding, or maybe deliberate indifference to the realities of disability. It highlights how easily authority can become abusive when it lacks empathy, when it fails to acknowledge individual circumstances, especially when those circumstances involve a protected group like people with disabilities. It's policy without compassion leading to harm.
And it gets worse. Much worse. Faced with Jacob saying explicitly he cannot just step out, one officer delivers this truly humiliating, dehumanizing command. He tells Jacob, "Well, if you're going to crawl yourself over that way, sir."
He actually said that. To crawl.
He actually said that. Think about the implications. Like a paraplegic man. Legs don't work. Dignity already being shredded. Explicitly told to crawl out of his car onto the asphalt, side of a busy highway. Because he can't walk and doesn't have his chair. It's just a direct assault on his humanity.
That's beyond words. Utterly degrading.
Jacob feels he has no choice. Under threat, he's forced to crawl out of the vehicle onto the ground, side of the highway. He's visibly distressed. He's pleading, repeatedly asking for a sergeant, asking for help, emphasizing how absurd and degrading this whole situation is.
A shocking display of power over vulnerability.
Absolutely. A moment just seared into his memory, you have to imagine. And amidst all this chaos, this dehumanization, the woman in the car, she's ordered out too. Her immediate concern isn't just for herself, it's for her adorable dog, and the fact she doesn't have a leash for it.
Adding another layer of potential chaos to an already dangerous scene.
Exactly. It just paints this vivid picture of complete disregard for the safety, the well-being of everyone involved, even the animals caught up in this escalating, unjustifiable encounter.
A crisis ignored, medical emergency, and further humiliation. This is where the story takes an incredibly dark turn. It moves beyond just disregard into, a shocking, potentially life-threatening denial of basic human rights, denial of essential medical care. Jacob, he's still on the ground, is becoming increasingly distressed. And he tries, with this profound urgency, to explain his medical need, his specific condition. autonomic dysreflexia.
Right. And for listeners, it's vital to understand autonomic dysreflexia isn't just discomfort. It's a genuine medical emergency for people with spinal cord injuries, typically T6 or higher. Your body's alarm system basically goes haywire because the bladder is critically full or there's some other noxious stimulus below the injury level. It can cause a sudden, severe spike in blood pressure.
Leading to stroke, seizure, even death if it's not addressed immediately. So when Jacob said he needed to urinate, it wasn't just about needing a bathroom break. His body was signaling an impending crisis.
And he described the symptoms.
He did. He clearly described his body constantly shaking, sweating. Classic, unmistakable signs of this crisis starting. For the officers to ignore that clear medical explanation, it's not just lacking empathy, it's a direct threat to Jacob's health. A failure to act that could have had profound, irreversible consequences.
Jacob then explains, with great difficulty, great vulnerability, his immediate solution, how he manages this. He says he uses a straw to poke my bladder to pee. It's a catheterization method, and he urgently needs to get his catheter supplies from the back floorboard of the car.
A simple, necessary action for him. Routine, but in this moment, a desperate plea to prevent that medical emergency.
Yet, despite this clear life-or-death explanation, despite his visible distress, the severe symptoms he's describing, the officers flatly refused.
They won't let him get his catheter.
No. They flatly refuse to allow him to retrieve it. They just stand firm, denying him access to his essential medical equipment.
Unbelievable. Denying medical assistance in an emergency?
And then it gets even worse. The ultimate cruelty. An act of dehumanization that is just almost beyond comprehension. Jacob is now desperate. He expresses his urgent need to urinate, the very real threat of his body failing him because of the dysreflexia, and an officer directly threatens him, warns him, if you pull your penis out, I'm charging you with indecent exposure.
Wait, what? He threatened him with indecent exposure for trying to catheterize himself to prevent a medical emergency?
That's what the source material indicates. Threatening him with criminal charges for trying to manage his disability and prevent a potentially fatal medical crisis.
That's just entering an ethical abyss. To deny essential medical care, knowing the life-threatening consequences, and then threaten criminal charges for trying to perform a necessary medical procedure, it's beyond belief.
The woman in the car, Dallas, she sees this horrifying ultimatum. She pleads with Jacob not to do it, understanding this impossible, cruel dilemma he's trapped in.
It's an unimaginable, morally repugnant situation. He's forced to choose. Risk serious, potentially fatal health issues from the ignored medical emergency, or face criminal charges, public humiliation, more legal trouble, just for trying to manage his disability. It's a profound act of dehumanization. Stripping someone of their dignity, their autonomy, their basic right to care for their own body, especially when facing immediate danger. The officers aren't just denying a request, they're actively putting his life at risk under threat of legal action. It demonstrates a complete, utter disregard for his basic human rights and medical needs. The systemic insight here is stark. When power is wielded without empathy or knowledge, the most vulnerable suffer severe, avoidable harm.
The outcome is, tragically, exactly what you'd expect. Jacob is ultimately forced to urinate on himself on the side of a busy highway, in full view of these officers, potentially passing cars. A profound act of humiliation, a crushing blow to his dignity, complete disregard for his needs, his medical condition. It speaks volumes about the officers' lack of compassion, their perceived impunity.
Just devastating.
And even after that, even after Jacob is on the ground, having him forced to urinate on himself, the officers continue their pressure. They insist on his full compliance. When Jacob doesn't move as they demand, remember, he can't just move easily. They physically assist him, which is a very polite way of saying they physically force him.
They drag him.
They move him from the ground, still unable to use his legs, into the backseat of their patrol car. Jacob explicitly states, I do not comply. He's protesting this forced movement. But they move him anyway. He demands they call for a wheelchair. He even cites previous, more professional interactions with state troopers, highlighting a clear contrast in how police should act.
Showing there are better ways to handle this.
Exactly. And he also repeatedly points out that the officer hasn't identified himself, hasn't provided a badge number. Basic accountability measures ignored.
Right. Transparency is key.
It's just a chaotic, profoundly undignified, terrifying end to this phase of the encounter. Jacob stripped of his autonomy, his basic rights, and subjected to utter humiliation.
Mean for the legal showdown and the plot twist, what the law actually says. Okay, so throughout this entire nightmare, the stop, the forced removal, the medical denial, The officers keep saying they have the right to order people out of the car. They cite officer safety reasons, the alleged probable cause from the marijuana smell, and they lean on Supreme Court cases like Pennsylvania v. Mims to justify it all.
Standard procedure in many ways. Mims does generally allow officers to order the driver out during a lawful stop for safety reasons. It was later extended to passengers, too, in Maryland v. Wilson. Right. But now we get to the episode's biggest and honestly most damning legal plot twist. This is where the expert analysis, the deep dive into the actual law, becomes absolutely critical. It completely unravels the foundation of the officer's supposed authority in this specific situation.
Exactly. Because this raises that crucial question the civil rights lawyer explored. What happens when these general rules, these precedents like Mims, collide head-on with the specific, unavoidable realities of someone with this severe physical disability like Jacob? It's not a common scenario legally, which is why the lawyer did a nationwide search for similar cases involving paraplegic occupants during traffic stops.
And did they find much?
Only a few, which really underscores how rare, yet how incredibly important, clear legal guidance is for these specific high-stakes situations.
Okay, so what did the search turn up?
This is the crucial part, the game changer. One federal case popped up. A controlling case from the Fifth Circuit, the very same jurisdiction these DeKalb officers operate under. Texas.
Controlling case.
Right.
Meaning it's the binding law they should have followed.
Precisely. The case is U.S. v. Meredith, decided back in 2007, nearly 2 decades before this incident.
And it dealt with this exact issue.
Directly. Meredith involved a driver who also claimed paraplegia and was ordered out of a car during a traffic stop. The court in Meredith had to specifically figure out how Pennsylvania v. Mims applied to someone physically unable to comply with an order to exit.
Wow. So a federal court in their exact jurisdiction had already ruled on this specific scenario years ago and provided guidance.
Yes. That's not just a plot twist. It's a colossal revelation. It completely reshapes how we understand what happened here.
Okay, so what did the Meredith court actually say?
Well, the court did agree that Mims generally allows officers to order occupants out. But EST, and this is the absolutely critical distinction the DeKalb officers apparently ignored or didn't know for physically unable occupants. The court explicitly stated that in such cases, an officer may open the occupant's door and conduct a minimally necessary visual inspection with the occupant still remaining in his seat.
So look inside without forcing them out.
Exactly. The court called this visual inspection a less intrusive option for Fourth Amendment rights compared to other choices like forcing them out. It provided a clear, legally sound, and obviously more humane alternative that balanced officer safety and the individual's rights and physical limitations.
A less intrusive, legally sanctioned alternative was right there in the case law.
It was. And what's even more astonishing, truly underlining the officer's massive misjudgment here, the Meredith court included a specific footnote. Footnote 21.
A footnote, what did it say?
Get this. Footnote 21 directly highlighted the absurdity, the court's word, the absurdity of options like ordering a handicapped occupant to crawl out of the car.
The court called crawling out absurd, the exact thing they made Jacob do.
The exact thing. The court also mentioned the absurdity of detaining occupants indefinitely until a wheelchair could be found. The court itself was explicitly pointing out how unreasonable, impractical, and yes, absurd such demands would be. Furthermore, the footnote warned that such actions could lead to more serious Fourth Amendment violations and potentially even violate the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA.
That is just beyond staggering. The court itself, in a binding case for this exact situation, basically said what these officers did was not only unreasonable, but specifically called it absurd and warned against it.
Explicitly warned against the very actions these officers took.
This completely undermines every single justification they had for putting Jacob and Dallas through that. It points to a massive systemic failure, doesn't it? It suggests either officers aren't trained on the laws protecting vulnerable citizens, or worse, they're choosing to ignore them, leaving people like Jacob completely without the protections they're legally entitled to.
It absolutely does. The controlling legal precedent in their own jurisdiction, established years prior, laid out a clear, less intrusive, more respectful path, one that upheld both safety and rights. The fact these officers seemingly ignored it or didn't know it, choosing instead the path the court itself deemed absurd and potentially illegal, it speaks volumes about their training, their judgment, maybe their intent. It reveals this profound gap between the law on the books and how it's applied on the street, with devastating consequences.
So after all of that, The claim smell, the forced removal, the medical denial, the humiliation, the blatant disregard for controlling legal precedent.
Yeah.
What did they find? What was the grand discovery that supposedly justified this entire traumatic ordeal?
Well, despite the officer's insistence on smelling marijuana, despite the search, no marijuana, of course, was found. Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing that would remotely justify that initial fishing expedition or the incredibly aggressive tactics used. The only thing discovered and charged was a tiny bottle of Evan Williams that still had some liquor in it, found in the passenger compartment.
A tiny bottle of whiskey.
Yep. Officer Kenny Foster issued a citation for open container in a vehicle, which is an extremely minor violation, basically equivalent to a traffic ticket in terms of seriousness.
An extremely minor violation. All that trauma, all that illegality, all that humiliation for a tiny bottle of liquor.
That was the sum total of the contraband found.
The sheer disproportionate nature of it all. The forced removal, denying life-saving medical care, the crawling, the urination, violating rights, compared to the actual crime discovered. It's just astounding. It undeniably highlights the aggressive, unjustified, and deeply flawed nature of the entire stop, from its suspicious start to its anticlimactic yet devastating end.
The lesson seems profound, doesn't it? A pretextual stop, fueled by a hunch, executed with disregard for law and dignity, can inflict immeasurable harm for, well, minimal, if any, legitimate law enforcement purpose. Month 5, the aftermath. Justice sought in a department in disarray.
So where do things stand now for Jacob and Dallas? After going through this nightmare, well, commendably, they've secured a lawyer, which clearly indicates they intend to pursue legal action against the DeKalb Police Department.
Seeking accountability. Makes sense.
Yeah, and that open container charge, that incredibly minor violation, apparently is still pending. A final lingering piece of this whole unjust encounter.
It's striking how quickly they sought legal recourse. It really underscores the severity of what they experienced and their belief that the officers' actions were way beyond acceptable policing. And thinking bigger picture, it's not just about them, is it? It's about challenging a pattern, holding institutions accountable, seeking justice potentially for others who might face similar abuses. It's a critical check in a democracy, holding power accountable.
Definitely. And what about the DeKalb Police Department itself, the institution behind these officers? Our source reveals something truly remarkable. Telling. Officers Will Rhodes and Kenny Foster, the two main officers involved here, are now apparently all that remains of the entire DeKalb Police Department.
All that remains. A whole department is just 2 guys now.
That's the report.
Yeah.
Everybody else is gone, including the chief of police.
Wow.
And the department reportedly has a terrible reputation, even among other law enforcement agencies in that part of Texas. This wasn't just one bad incident, clearly. It points to systemic, deep-seated problems.
Yeah, that's more than just downsizing. That sounds like a systemic implosion, a collapse from within, rather than just an isolated case of misconduct. When a police department shrinks to just 2 officers and has that kind of reputation, even among its peers, it implies really deep-rooted issues. Could be widespread misconduct, leadership failure, total loss of community trust, maybe huge legal liabilities piling up.
A total breakdown.
A complete breakdown of operational integrity, public confidence. And think about the public safety implication, too. What happens in a community when its police force is basically non-existent and discredited? It leaves a vacuum.
That's a sobering thought. But despite all this trauma, the ongoing legal fight, Jacob and Dallas remain incredibly committed to their mission, a mission that probably feels even more vital now, raising awareness about people with disabilities.
Still focused on advocacy.
Yeah. They hope their story shines a light on dirty cops, helps clean up the system. So maybe, eventually, people can start trusting cops again, their resilience, their faith. It's genuinely inspiring. They're determined not to let their disabilities stop them from living life, from continuing their advocacy, including that amazing work they do taking others with disabilities, hunting and fishing, showing what's possible.
It's genuinely powerful, isn't it? That unwavering spirit, faced with such dehumanizing treatment, such injustice. Their response isn't just anger or retribution. It's this renewed commitment to advocacy, to the bigger goal of rebuilding trust in a system that fundamentally failed them. It really raises an important question for all of us, I think. How much responsibility falls on courageous citizens like Jacob and Dallas to be the catalyst for systemic change, when the institutions themselves seem to be failing so profoundly to uphold justice and basic dignity? Their story is just this powerful testament to how personal resilience can hopefully spark wider societal transformation.
I trow. So today we've gone on a deep dive into a powerful and, yeah, truly unsettling story. We followed Jacob and Dallas through that harrowing roadside encounter in DeKalb, Texas. From what looked like a minor traffic stop, we uncovered these layers of calculated deception, a profound disregard for basic human rights, for urgent medical needs, and that shocking revelation about the actual legal rules surrounding interactions like this, the law that was seemingly ignored.
The Meredith case, yeah. Directly applicable, yet disregarded.
We saw the deep impact of past trauma on present distrust, and ultimately, the unwavering spirit of two friends just fighting for justice and dignity against truly overwhelming odds. So what does this all mean for you listening? This story, it isn't just about one incident in some small Texas town. It's a vivid, painful illustration of that ongoing tension, isn't it, between citizen rights and police authority, especially when it involves individuals with disabilities.
It really highlights the critical importance of knowing your rights, understanding the legal nuances that are supposed to govern police interactions, and recognizing when those in power might be exceeding their authority or maybe deliberately misinterpreting it.
Yeah. This incident serves as this stark reminder that the fight for dignity, for justice, it's ongoing. Vigilance is just paramount. And this deep dive leaves us with a compelling question, maybe a haunting one. In a world where we're striving for inclusivity, for respect, what is the true cost, the immeasurable cost, when those sworn to protect and serve instead sow deep distrust, inflict profound humiliation, particularly on the most vulnerable among us?
And how do we, as a society, make sure that legal precedents designed to protect, like U.S. v. Meredith, are actually upheld, actually enforced on the ground, instead of being ignored or deliberately circumvented by the very people tasked with upholding the law?
Exactly. It's a question that resonates far beyond DeKalb, Texas, and it's one we all collectively really need to grapple with and demand answers to.